India is going through a phase of political polarization in favor of right-wing extremism. The oppression of minorities, especially Muslims, is increasing through the use of various institutions. The introduction of the Citizen Amendment Bill on 9th of December 2019 in Lok Sabha and the subsequent resistance against it led to mass protests throughout the country. It is understood in the Muslim consciousness that the current regime is driven by the motive of turning Muslims into a second-class citizen. Discrimination against Muslims in India is not a new phenomenon. The Sachar Committee, which was constituted to study the social, economic and educational condition of Muslims in India, published its report in 2006, highlighting the facts that were already known, but affirmed them through statistical analysis of various data collected by the government agencies. It was found that Muslims were one of the most oppressed communities in the country. Their socio-economic conditions were no better than Dalits and Adivasis, and sometimes even worse. The election of BJP-led NDA government in 2014 added to the insecurities in the minds of the Muslim population. These insecurities soon found substance. The right-wing Hinduism groups throughout the country started openly attacking, harassing and oppressing the Muslims and other minorities. Ploys of love jihad, cow lynchings, anti-national rhetoric, triple talaq, amendments in UAPA and NSA bill, are some of the ways through which the Indian Muslims were made to feel helpless and powerless. It was at the backdrop of this, that the Indian Muslims resisted to the Citizenship Amendment Bill, thus fighting for their constitutional rights within the country. The BJP-led government is now spending the state resources to falsely accuse and incarcerate unapologetic Muslim leaders, activists and scholars who have dared to oppose this oppressive government by falsely accusing them and incarcerating them. Let us see the timeline of events that undertook after the start of these protests. The first protest on CAA-NRC was organized by students of JNU and Jamia with United Against Hate on 7th of December 2019 at Jantar Mandir. Citizenship Amendment Bill was reintroduced in the Lok Sabha on 9th December. Protests against the Citizenship Amendment Bill and a nationwide NRC intensified. Rallies and marches were held in Delhi, Assam, Manipur and parts of India over the weekend. The act was passed in Rajya Sabha on 11th December. In response to this, the first protest in Jamia was held on the 13th of December 2019. There was a brutal lathi charge by the Delhi police on the protesting students. Many students were detained. The next day, protesters at Shaheen Bagh, mainly consisting of Muslim women, blocked a road in New Delhi using non-violent resistance. The next protest, which was held in Jamia on 15th December, has been widely recognized as a black day in its history. Students were brutally beaten and attacked by the Delhi police. Even the students studying in the library were not spared. Protests were held in response to the police brutalities at the police headquarters, on the same night at Edo by the students and activists of JNU, Jamia and other universities. On the same day, there was massive violence against the protesting students at Aligarh Muslim University. There were continuous protests against the CAA and police brutalities after these events. Shaheen Bagh became the model of protest for Muslims, and many such Shaheen Baghs were staged in different cities across the country. BJP did not like the intensification of anti-CAA protests and feared that they may spread further. To control and suppress the rising voices against the government, the BJP started misusing its power by arresting activists and slapping draconian charges of sedition and UAPA. Sharjeel Imam, a student of Center for Historical Studies, JNU, who was one of the main organizers of Shaheen Bagh protests, was the first to be targeted. An FIR was lodged against him, on the charges of sedition for calling a Chakka Jam on 25th of January 2020. He surrendered to the Bihar police on 28th of January 2020. After this, BJP used sedition and UAPA as a tool to suppress Muslim voices. Many Muslim activists were arrested on accusations of violence in Jamia, AMU and Northeast Delhi pogrom. On February 23, 2020, a leader of the ruling BJP Kapil Mishra, demanded that Delhi police clear the roads occupied by protesters and threatened to forcefully end the protests if the police failed. Rioters wearing helmets and carrying sticks, stones, swords or pistols, and the saffron flags of Hindu nationalism were rushing violently into Muslim neighborhoods, as the police stood passively by. In the name of Northeast Delhi violence investigation, hundreds of Muslims were arrested and harassed. They are unknown in the mainstream because no media covered their stories. Surprisingly, the Muslim community who were bearing the brunt of the anti-Muslim pogrom are the ones that are now being harassed and getting arrested. The real culprits like Kapil Mishra who instigated the violence are roaming free. Similarly, the armed man who openly fired on Jamia students, and Kapil Gujjar who fired on Shaheen Bagh protesters are left to roam free without any action being taken against them. If India is to remain a secular and democratic nation, its leaders and citizens need to make sure that justice is not denied to anyone in this nation. The first step towards it would be to acquit falsely accused Muslim leaders and activists.